along with some of my favorite ways to cook spring produce. Hi Chefeteers, I'm Chef Nakia and I want you to be more confident in the kitchen and I want you to be confident cooking the delicious spring produce that is coming around. If you live in Colorado like I do, this spring has been weird. I mean, even winter was weird, and then winter into spring has just been very, very weird. And even if you don't live in Colorado, but you watch my videos, you've heard me complain about how weird and how little snow we got this winter. And I'm gonna eventually stop complaining. Today won't be that day, but at some point I'll stop complaining about the snow situation. However, all of this to say that farmers markets are starting to open up here in Colorado, and I am very curious to see just what our produce situation is like this year. Parts of February and a lot of March was unseasonably warm here. So I'm really, really curious how that affected any of our locally grown produce. I can tell you this little tidbit about my garden. So don't worry, this whole video isn't just like my story time about my garden box, but I have a garden box and I procrastinated on, completely cleaning it out after the end of last harvesting season. And so a few months ago, I finally finished pulling out the last of my pea plants, and there were some pods with seeds in them. And I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna try this out. I'm just gonna pop some of these seeds in my garden box here and see what happens. And y'all, I already have 6 pea plants, like sprouts, coming up. I'm so excited. I also had some thyme sprout up sometime in March, I wanna say. I barely even noticed, and it's still doing great too. So just based off of my little backyard experiment, I'm pretty hopeful for some amazing spring produce in farmers markets, and maybe even some interesting summer stuff happening too. Let's all keep our fingers crossed that we get plenty of rain. But for now, we're gonna talk about spring produce. What are we actually talking about today? We're talking about spring produce, which produce items to keep an eye out for this season and really take advantage of. What should you expect to be extra flavorful or maybe a little bit of a cheaper price this time of year? And then how to store that seasonal produce along with some of my favorite ways to cook spring produce. So we're gonna have a couple categories. We're gonna start with roasting veggies, and then we have some leafy greens, and then just other vegetables because they didn't really fit into either of those 2 categories. And then finally, we're gonna talk a bit about fruit. For roasting veggies, we have ingredients like asparagus, broccoli, carrots, onion and garlic, turnips and celery. Now, garlic and onion really are they're year round. I got some pretty sweet celery the other day. I was very excited about it. So the celery that you're getting this time of year might be some of the sweetest celery that you're gonna be able to find. Also, if you are getting some early harvest carrots, those could be on the sweeter side also. When we think of spring, a lot of times we think about pastel colors, right? A little bit softer. And so roasting veggies might in some ways feel like a contradiction to that soft pastel, but these ingredients can sometimes be the sweetest versions of themselves, the sweetest that you're gonna find throughout the year. So if you like your veggies with a little bit of a sweeter edge to it. Of course, it's not gonna be candy sweet, but just a little bit of that sweetness, a little less robust and hearty, then you're gonna love these spring roasting veggies. Now out of this group, I'm going to highlight asparagus, and with the warmer temperatures coming, I love to grill asparagus this time of year. What I really love is whenever I can find those thicker asparagus spears, like the ones that you really need to cut through with a fork and knife. I love grilling those. the flavor that you can get on that, and the tips will get nice and crispy, while because the stalk, like the spear part, is so thick, it's keeping that like nice texture. So if you are going to grill asparagus, I love just tossing it in a little bit of olive oil first, and you can keep the seasoning really simple with just some salt, maybe even some fresh cracked black pepper. Or you could do like a lemon pepper or a za'atar seasoning, or like a garlic and pepper seasoning. If you want your asparagus to fit a flavor theme with the rest of your meal, it's very versatile. So you can have a lot of fun with the seasonings, but I think that especially this time of year, the flavor you're getting out of the asparagus and the delicious like grill, especially if you're using a charcoal grill, you don't need much extra flavor. Our second group are leafy greens, and this makes a lot of sense because leafy greens can grow pretty quickly. And so once you are past, once you're past the like freezing point, the risk of a frost, you can start growing these. Though if you were in Colorado this year, you probably could have planted and harvested them just in between frosts with how kind of crazy things were. Or you can grow these in a greenhouse style situation like more easily than you can most of your other vegetables. So your leafy greens include things like spinach and Swiss chard, kale, collard greens, and then mesclun blend. In grocery stores, you'll usually see this marketed as like spring mix. And spring mix doesn't necessarily mean that all of those lettuces are spring lettuces. It's just a variety of lettuce types. A lot of times in those blends, you'll get some baby spinach, romaine, arugula, radicchio, and oak leaf. I have even seen some with mizuna leaves in them. So of course, these can be great to build your salads on top of, but like collard greens and kale can also be delicious roasted or like sauteed and mixed into your other dishes, especially like roasted veggie type dishes. Cabbage is another leafy green. You know, it's not really delicate leafy like spinach is, but yeah, like a nice head of cabbage. You can, again, use that as a good salad base, or you shred that cabbage up for a delicious slaw, whether you make it like a creamy slaw or a more vinegar-based slaw. You can use slaws for a lot of things, and we love using cabbage on our tacos when we make tacos. Also, if you make like homemade kimchi or anything like that, there are so many uses for cabbage. And I think I might like do a deep dive into cabbage in a later video. Like, I don't know, it's still workshopping the idea. Maybe like a dozen ways to make cabbage delicious or something. Let me know your thoughts. Do you guys want to learn more about how to like cook some good cabbage, or is it something that you tend to skip? Let me know in the comments. Okay, thank you. Now our three other veggies that are especially good in spring, but didn't necessarily fit into any of these other categories, were avocados, radishes, and peas. Yes, I started this video bragging about my pea plants already coming up. They are early risers in that sense, and the spring peas can be a lot more delicate than the ones that you're harvesting later on in the year. Along with peas are like green beans. And so I want to show you one of my favorite ways to cook green beans. They're so delicious. And I actually have to give my husband some solid props for this, because he has been cooking green beans like this for the past 6 months or so. And it's been really nice to like have a dish that I know I'm gonna find really delicious and he feels super confident cooking. Go ahead and, wash and trim off any of the ends, or if there's any parts that don't look quite so good, trim those off. And then warm up a saute pan with olive oil, medium heat, and then you can mince some garlic, add that in, and pretty soon after you can add your green beans in. Don't want to completely walk away from this, but do be careful to not over stir this. It might feel a little bit unnatural. You might be tempted to sit there and constantly kind of be turning them. But what's actually super delicious about this style of cooking green beans is that one or two of your edges of green beans can get like toasted and a little, not completely crispy, but they take on a little bit of a different texture on the edges there, and it's so good. So you're gonna cook these green beans for a while, maybe like 12 to 15 minutes, and over that time, you're only gonna stir them every 4 to 5 minutes. Like, do not touch them every 30 seconds. You just have to let them sit there for 4 minutes at a time. And then, personally, I like to finish them with just a little bit of a drizzle of tamari sauce, or you could use soy sauce to give it a little bit of that extra saltiness, and I love the flavor of tamari. But if you don't want to do that, and you do like more like buttery green beans, then at the very end, you can go ahead and add like half a tablespoon or a tablespoon, however much you want, of butter, let that melt on, and then serve those immediately. So there is your little tip about how to cook some like to die for green beans. And if my husband can become super confident cooking these, I know you can. All right, so lastly, we're gonna talk about fruits. And tropical fruits will typically start being more available, but they can kind of come and go, and I find every year is a little bit different. So take these with a little bit of a grain of salt. Pineapples, mangoes, plantains, and kiwis. This year so far, I've actually noticed some really good pineapples, and I've still been waiting for those like amazing looking mangoes. I also haven't seen as many kiwis, just heads up there. But you'll also start seeing some berries pop up, and like really delicious looking berries. So your blueberries and strawberries, raspberries and blackberries. Of course, fruits like apples and pears can be year-round, but apricots, from like the stone fruit category, apricots tend to peek their cute little noses out a bit earlier. So you might be able to start finding those at farmer's market within the next few weeks. And for me, the fruit combination, we'll call it, that screams spring more than anything else is strawberry rhubarb. And yes, you can of course make like a strawberry rhubarb pie, but have you ever thought about trying to make a strawberry rhubarb salad? I think that this can be a great like garden party salad. You can pickle your rhubarb. I know rhubarb is already kind of like tangy, a little bitter, but I find that pickling it just really changes that into a very interesting flavor. And then if you slice it pretty thinly, a little bit can go a long way. And then you can dice up some fresh strawberries, pair it with some goat cheese, any of your favorite like nuts or seeds, and then put that on a bed of spring mix salad. That's totally fine. You can use spring mix for this. And you have a really delicious, light but interesting spring salad. The other two types of spring salads that I would recommend would be to do a roasted veggie salad still. I have this one that I just legitimately call a spring salad. But you're enjoying those roasted veggies whenever it's still a bit, like cool enough where you can enjoy some warm elements before we move into the summer and we really just want like cold salads all the time. And then the third salad that I would break out this time of year, especially for like a Mother's Day type brunch, would be like a fruit and green salad. So like spinach, a base of spinach, and a lot of fresh berries on top. Our two side dish recommendations is that grilled asparagus and those sauteed green beans that I mentioned before. You can pair those with fish, chicken, pork, beef, all kinds of delicious entrees. And lastly, our desserts. So as I said before, yes, a strawberry rhubarb pie or like a cake with like a strawberry rhubarb topping, it could be delicious, but really you can't go wrong with any type of fruit pie and or crisp or cobbler. Whether it's strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, or like a blend of different berries. Yeah, this is really the time of year to enjoy those fruits, and especially if you're making like a crisp or cobbler or something like that, you can just buy those berries frozen from the grocery store. and you don't have to worry about like finding the best fresh ones. The frozen ones are gonna be great. Yes, all time of year, but it's more fun this time of year, right? And then if you are at a farmer's market and you see a bunch of berries on sale for some reason, or if you get the opportunity to go and like harvest some fresh fruits throughout the summer, like strawberry picking or blueberry picking or anything like that, then eat as much of those fresh as possible because they're gonna be the most flavorful, amazing berries ever. But if you are stressed about getting rid, like using them all up before they get moldy, then bring those crisps and cobblers back into the rotation, or freeze those fruits and then use them for smoothies or desserts or however you most enjoy them. Thank you so much, Chefeteers. I hope that you all enjoy the spring produce, and I hope that you find opportunities to go to the farmer's market and check out what kind of delicious produce is becoming available. Chit chat with the farmers. A lot of the times the farmers can give you a little bit of a heads up, and so you can meal plan for those fresh ingredients, and you'll feel even more prepared whenever you go back to the farmer's market the next week. And for anybody who is starting their gardens this year, good luck. I hope that yours grows beautifully and you have an abundance of delicious produce to harvest. Please wish me luck on mine. Thank you so much, Chefeteers. I hope that you cook something joyful soon.